Jack M. Finger.
Madam Mayor and other members of the City Council, for the record, my name is Jack M. Finger. Just a little bit of housekeeping on that last item you talked about, the gunshot spotters. My question is, what happens when the perpetrators start putting silencers upon their guns? Y'all never thought about that there, did you? Well, on to the other scandals on today's agenda here. Item 39, very buried item here there. Item 39, ordinance authorizing budgets in the San Antonio Metropolitan Health District there and so forth. Very mundane thing. You don't see anything really necessarily controversial here until you get into the backup documents. Yes, I looked at the backup documents. I saw the various budgets with the Metropolitan Health District, including a couple of them dealing with teen pregnancy prevention. Teen pregnancy prevention, yes. And I looked at the one of the budgets on there, and it said, $98,000 for what? For chemicals, drugs, and medicines. Chemicals, medicines, and drugs. Now, what is our question is? We here in the conservative Christian community, we ask: is the most effective technique for teen pregnancy prevention abstinence? Is that in the program anywhere? We haven't seen it, and when we see the title chemicals, medicals, and drugs, we start wondering, how much does abstinence cost? The mere teaching of such. $98,000. Sounds like you're promoting promiscuity here. And quite frankly, we don't like that. We don't like our tax dollars going to teaching kids to go ahead and use this birth control item, my little girl, and if it fails, well, there's a Planned Parenthood clinic just around the corner for you to get your abortion with there. Yeah. And we also want to ask, who is administering these programs? Could it possibly Dr. Chi-Chi Wu, whom we railed against a few weeks ago when we learned that she, the Planned Parenthood abortionist, you wanted to place her as one of the leaders in our Metropolitan Health District. I asked to the city manager, Cheryl Scully, who's not in her chair right now, gee whiz, Madam Manager, what role is Dr. Wu playing in any of this here? Maybe you would want to ask such questions as well. Yes. Maybe you want to delay item 39 until you get some good answers on this stuff. Right? Huh? Okay. Other scandals on this. Oh, my goodness. So many scandals, so little time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Finger.
Number 39 is an ordinance authorizing budgets in a cumulative amount of approximately $11,592,472, staffing complements and other related items in order to participate in the Medicaid 1115 Waiver Program for demonstration years 5, which begins October 1st, 2015, and ends on September 30th, 2016.
Councilman Gallagher. Apologize. Let me call the citizens. Thank you. We'll start with Patrick Von Dolen.
Oh, this is...
Mr. Von Dolen. Okay, Michael Knufke. Michael Knufke. Okay, they're not here. Councilman Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm really uncomfortable with a couple aspects of this authorization that we're looking at right now. And if you recall, we had a discussion of this last year at the same time on this issue. What it really amounts to is that the city is involved in providing contraceptive drugs, which we heard testimony last year could actually be harmful to the students that are involved in this program. And that, to me, is very disturbing. The one thing that I think that it's very important for all of us to consider is really what are our basic responsibilities as we govern the city. And one of them, of course, at the top of the list is our infrastructure, but second is also public safety. And here's a case where public safety certainly is called into question. I don't think this program is safe. And then I asked the question, where are the families, the parents, the school counselors, our church leaders, and why aren't they the ones involved in solving these problems, not our city government? And it is due to these concerns that, unfortunately, I can't support the ordinance. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd start by saying ditto to Colonel Gallagher's comments. Could you walk us through what we have before us here and what's contained in this application?
Yes, but first I would like to say I'd like to go through a short overview of the program, sort of to carry us through.
Please.
Okay, the 1115 waiver project, as I discussed during the previous budget discussions, include several programs. First, it was approved in 2011, so this is actually the fifth year of a 5-year program. It's about $29 billion that came through Texas, and Bexar County region, we got about $1.6 billion, and Metro Health had about $43 million of that. We have 6 prevention strategies that's included in the 1115 program for Metro Health. It includes teen pregnancy, the community-based diabetes program, our HIV program, the neighborhood health program, school-based oral health program, and our baby cafe, which is a breastfeeding promotion program. In the budget for teen pregnancy, is $1.62 million. The diabetes program entails about $1.5 million. The HIV and syphilis prevention program is $993,000. The neighborhood health program is $1.8 million, and the school-based oral health program is $1.26 million. Baby cafe is $647,000. I highlighted during the budget discussions the highlights of each one of those programs, so I'll run through them right quickly. In our teen prevention program, we saw about 2,807 teens that went through the program. And these include 4 different programs. The programs in question is one of those 4 programs. The diabetes program is 1,582 participants that were enrolled in our self-management diabetes program. About 912 participants were screened for our HIV and or the syphilis program that's actually done in the field. And about 2,800 participants in our health promotion program, in our neighborhood health program, which is also a field-based program. About 13,000 kids were screened and treated in our oral health program. And our baby cafe program saw, it's not working. This right quickly. They saw about 693 participants. So with that, going back to the teen pregnancy program, the 4 components include, there it is. It's not working, so I'll just go through it. There are 4 components of it. One is education, which is professional development for providers. That includes physicians, to which education is given to those on how this program works, as well as some educational programs in teen pregnancy. We do case management. That's actually after a kid or a teen that is pregnant, their case management, that's aftercare. such that we also look for that second or prevent the second pregnancy as well. We do an evidence-based teen pregnancy program, which also helps focus on a very high teen birth rate. You have to understand, in San Antonio, we're 5 times the national average for teen pregnancy, and the number for the second teen pregnancy is even higher. So we do recognize that it is a problem. And we also do the implants, which are a very safe, and it has been very effective, less than 1% failure rate, and it lasts for 3 years, and it's one of the most safe methods that can be done for preventive therapy. So with that, if we want to discuss specifics about the program, I'll be willing to entertain any questions.
Well, thank you for that explanation. This item comes up annually. Will we be applying for a renewal of this 5-year grant?
Well, that renewal right now is in the governor's office, and the governor has until next year to determine whether or not we're going to apply for another 5-year cycle.
And would that come back to this council, or only if it's approved by the governor's office?
It's approved by the governor's office for the state of Texas, and CMS then designates how much they're going to allocate for each region, and our region would get a certain allocation. And so, after that, we submit our application back for the programs, yes. And it will come back to council. Yes, it will come back to council, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it would come back to us once we
Yes,
have
sir.
a proposed contract. Mayor, I share Colonel Gallagher's concerns. I know this has been an issue for the faith-based community for some time. It does seem to me, and I will join Colonel Gallagher in voting no on this. It does seem to me that it might be helpful before we renew this again, if that's what we wind up considering, if we put this on a B session agenda so that we could have a more thorough public discussion of what we're getting in and what it's going for. It seems like we always see this with an appendage that says, hey, this is for the October 1st budget cycle, so since we're not meeting next week, you'd have to put at risk the entire $11 million in order to deal with making one change, unless I'm mistaken, Eric, in that interpretation. So I think you'd be in a position the next time this comes up to consider whether or not it might be well served to have a B session discussion on it.
Yeah, Councilman, I just wanted to remind you that when the city embarked on this 5 years ago, initially the 5 programs were proposed by the staff in coordination with the county hospital district. And so if the governor does extend this agreement with the federal government, then it would be certainly appropriate for the staff to come up with what are we going to do for the next 5 years and have that discussion with the council at a B session.
Good. That would be great. Thank you, Mayor. I will be voting no.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Viagran.
Thank you, Mayor, and I hope we do see this for renewal coming up next year, and et cetera. So if you could share with me a little bit, just to be clear, this was from the state legislature 2011, which was approved, correct?
Correct.
And so it was approved by our state legislature and our governor in 2011, correct?
Oh, in 2011 it was approved here at council.
So looking at all of these projects, what is really staggering to me, one are the numbers, but then also that these are the programs that are here that I am looking at here, that you just went through: teen pregnancy prevention, diabetes prevention, HIV, syphilis, school-based oral health, neighborhood health, and the breastfeeding promotion. As someone who just went through a root canal, oral health is very, very important, but it's also something that our families and our community need as well. And also, I would like to say that we need and can do more. I would like to see us do that, because I agree that public safety and health is one of the big promotions that we need to look at as a city as well for our citizens. And I also think about how much we have changed in our community. And I know stories from my mother. She couldn't breastfeed because she had to work, and there were no ways for her to be able to do that while she was working back then. And things are changing, and we have to share the education and the story. And I do agree as well that families and churches and communities do need to be the first ones and to talk to our young people, to talk to our students, to talk to the families and teach about prevention and education, abstinence, etc. But then we also need to do our part as a city as well. I'm going to make a motion to approve this. And I think that this is something that we need to continue to work on and use all of the tools that we can in order to make a safe and healthy community. And I think, honestly, that we need to talk more about these issues in open, in public, to make it not so taboo, because it's something that's important for all of us. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Saldana.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't know if I can add more than Councilwoman Villarreal has already explained eloquently about the importance of this program, not only the importance of it, but the success and the track record it's had over the last several years. It would be different to say that we shouldn't use this program because there's no use for it here. But when you look at the facts bear out that San Antonio is 5 times higher than the national average with respect to teen pregnancy. So when we think about all the tools at our disposal, it should be the nonprofit community, it should be the faith-based community, it should be teachers, it should be parents, and we shouldn't take out one of those elements, which is the city's role in public health that is providing to that success that we've seen over the last few years. And it is correct that we do this every single year, but maybe you could remind us again of the decreases that we've seen in this isolated problem, because it seems to be the most controversial around teen pregnancy and the use of education and contraception.
Yeah, well, one thing I think Council Member Villagrán did mention that we have a large educational component to this program, and the education component is a prevention method. I mean, we teach abstinence. We also instruct physicians and other providers on the program, as well as some prevention strategies. And all of our programs are evidence-based. So it's data-driven. We see where the problems lie, and we try to address those high-risk areas, and it's been quite effective. We about 40% reduction in our teen pregnancy rates, yet we're still 5 times higher than the national average, which means that we are being effective, but we're still way behind. And so we're just trying to make the community healthier.
Thank you for the explanation, because what you move forward is the fact that it is not necessarily the concept of contraception that is the solution here. It is the education of some of our young people. And whether you're talking about success in high school academically, success in high school or college athletically, if you have the voice of a caring adult, and in this case, an informed caring adult, and you're putting that caring adult in front of a young person, it will completely alter the trajectory of that young person's life. And we're looking at San Antonio from a very high vantage point. And if we are 5 times the national average, it is clear that there are probably folks who sit at this dais who represent parts of our city in districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, where that average is probably 10 times the national average if you just focused exclusively on a certain zip code or a certain part of the city. So for us to be thinking about pushing back on this program or pumping the brakes is quite silly of us. And I know that we go through it every year, and folks have an opinion that I don't share on this, but I do have an opinion that is informed by living in those communities and experiencing those conversations with young people who are dealing with this issue, and they didn't have that caring adult that this program provides. So I'm happy to support it today. I'm happy to support it tomorrow, and I hope with the 5-year program it gets renewed and we're able to continue that program for as long as I'm on the dais. So thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I certainly can't add any more eloquence to the discussion than what my colleagues have done in support of this program. And what, honestly, we're talking about is a subset of a subset. I mean, there's a multitude of programs here. The teen pregnancy one gets a lot of attention, and I understand why. And in many cases, it's very justified by those individuals that have concerns with it. But it's a component of it that we're talking about that has to do with outreach and education. And the only thing that I'll caution us on is we put out a lot of information on, teen pregnancy, the consequences, trying to, instill abstinence and good behavior and all the kinds of things that are what we want to be doing, certainly as parents, as leaders in our community and the like. However, just putting out the information is not as effective as we want it to be. Last year during this discussion, I had my laptop in front of me at that time. I don't today, but I pulled up a particular drug that everybody takes pretty commonly and rattled off all the information that was associated with it, which had all kinds of negative effects. And it turns out that what I was talking about was aspirin. So that information is on the internet. There is a lot of, oftentimes, just hysteria around information that's out there in overabundance, which is oftentimes misleading. So my question is, because information is a big piece of what we try to do, outreach is a big piece of what we ought to do, we are doing, what are we also doing from a case management perspective to make sure that the targeted audience, and in this case it's young men and women, teenagers, are given a little bit more than just, here's a lot of information on why you shouldn't. The actual case management, those children that are at risk, and how we actually communicate with them and get them to learn or adopt the correct behaviors. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of outreach?
Yes. In our education program, we do several things, starting with the providers. We try to get them on the same page, if you will, that we're on. We develop fact sheets for them. We give them protocols for procedures. But we also talk to parents because in this teen pregnancy program, everybody participates that's under 18 has to be secured through their parents. In other words, their parents have to authorize us to even talk to them. And we work with the school systems. Edgewood School System and San Antonio Independent School Districts are the two main districts that we work with. And so we have the nurses, we have instruction and information provided to the school nurses, as well as the teachers and administrators as well. So the parental consent is the one kind of clear person-to-person contact to make sure that that parent is involved into that case management. So it is a very, again, evidence-based. We use the Stanford model. We use some other well-documented, well-researched programs, such that when we're going to do it at the end of this year, we're going to do an evaluation of these programs. And the evaluation is going to tell us really how effective they are across the board for the entire 1115 program. But it's also going to highlight each individual of those 6 programs. So we'll have some more data in a year to provide that will show the real evaluation of the programs.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much. I certainly look forward to looking at that data. We try to do everything here, that's on data-driven activity or validated through real data, and I think that'll be very meaningful to the discussion perhaps next year whenever we're coming around to our annual cycle of consideration. But clearly, the outreach, the case management is a critical component of this. Putting out information is certainly a good thing, but as we also know, oftentimes we are inundated with information, and oftentimes it's either misleading or will be interpreted at the leisure of the individual reading it, right? I will read into what I want to when I read it, and as a teenager, oftentimes the interpretation of what you're reading may not be exactly the message we want to deliver, so case management is an incredible component of it, and the parental component of it, I think, is even more important. So thank you for bringing it forward. Look forward to continued dialogue on it, and I'm glad to support this with my second. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Nirenberg.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Nathan. We keep being reminded about great things that are happening in the city, but we're also reminded about lists that we're on that include things like persistent poverty income inequality and just how much impact public health has on those things and keeping people in the conditions that they are. I do remember the public discussion that was included, not just council, but this entire city 5 years ago, when we identified teen pregnancy, diabetes prevention, particularly with childhood diabetes and obesity, as well as syphilis becoming an issue in San Antonio. And I see the program that you guys have been doing and making remarkable impact on that. So I do support it wholeheartedly. I think you guys are doing great work. I think we can continue to look for ways that we can assist you in those efforts. But I think this is some of the success points that we've had in public health over this past 5 years have been directly addressing those issues that unfortunately are so controversial but very important. So I will be supporting it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. And could you just remind me how the money is distributed to each of these programs?
Would you repeat that, please?
How money gets distributed between each of the programs?
Oh, okay, for just one, the teen pregnancy?
No, but for example, we have 6 items here. How do we determine 1.62 million goes to teen pregnancy and 1.05 million goes to diabetes prevention?
Okay, each one of these programs is based on a set of metrics that, again, CMS approves prior to the program, because when we do our intergovernmental transfer, the amount that we transfer to them and the amount that we get back is predicated on how much they value each one of our metrics. And those metrics then would be listed as how much we get for each individual program. So it's based on our metrics. If we don't meet those metrics, we don't get the income based on that.
Okay, I see. And I do see here that you're meeting your goals in every one of the categories except the neighborhood health. I'm sorry. Did I see anyone that you were not meeting? Oh, diabetes prevention and control. Looks like the target number was just slightly below the goal.
Yes, but we think by the end of the year we would meet that metric, though.
Okay, so because I know that's one of the critical ones that we talk about a lot in the community is diabetes prevention and neighborhood health, and they're all really interrelated. I mean, almost all of these.
Oh, a lot of our programs are interrelated. The STDs and the pregnancy program, for example, because many times those are co-infections. So we do see a lot of overlap. And our outreach programs, our neighborhood programs, the STD programs, the HIV programs, all are community outreach type programs. So many times we actually have those programs working together out in the field. Because our programs are addressed toward high-risk individuals, and so sometimes our neighborhood programs can identify where the high-risk people are located. And then our STD vans can go out and actually do testing in the field. And so it gives us an opportunity to not only to work together, but also reach the high-risk individuals.
Good. Well, thank you. And, I trust that you're doing a very good job of targeting the areas where there's the most need and where you will get the best results. And I also want to say, didn't we have a B session on this? We talked about all of these.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, right. So
yes.
I thought we did, and because I remember commenting about the breastfeeding cafe, so and some
right.
of these other programs. So we have plenty of opportunity to ask questions at that time about some of these programs, and I know I, for one, am especially supportive of them here, and just look forward to the results, because that's really where. Why it's so significant once we get those results and start to see a turnaround in our community, whether it's teen pregnancy or diabetes prevention or the breastfeeding cafe, that people are utilizing those, and we have a better community as a result. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Warwick.
Thank my colleagues for their heartfelt and really serious comments on the matter. When I first came out to San Antonio a couple years back, I volunteered at Sam Houston High School with a group of ninth graders, ninth grade class. And while mentoring this class, I'm talking to the students about their dreams and goals. And one of the students, who was probably the brightest kid in the class, his dream in life was to be an auto mechanic and a Walmart shelf stocker. and that was his pie in the sky dream. And now, mind you, he had to drop out of middle school to take care of his child that he had just had, and is coming back to the 9th grade as a 15-year-old because he had to take a year off, and he realized that he couldn't get a job and he couldn't really support that child the way he needed to without at least a high school degree. And when I heard that information, I just realized how far removed I was from a lot of these problems and how much more I had to give back to the community. And not being able to see that from, I need you guys to go to our high schools and go to SAISD and go to Edgewood and see what these kids are going through, and see that it's not just at the high school level. They're dropping out of middle school because they're having kids. And this is not a one-off situation, especially in San Antonio. And we have to understand, if the people aspect doesn't implore you to vote yes for this, then the monetary aspect should. $260,000 in lost productivity, lost wages, and lost earnings over their lifetime. Only 2% of teenage mothers finish college by the time they're 30 years old. So imagine all these people that are taken out of the workforce and taken out of the economy and cannot produce in this city where we need people to produce in order to grow and thrive. So that, if anything, other than all the other aspects that make this positive, should make you understand that this is much needed for our community, and this is the reason why I am strongly in support. And finally, the Promise Zone. The Promise Zone is here because we have these problems. There's no reason for the Promise Zone to be in San Antonio without disparities in income, disparities in health outcomes, disparities in teenage pregnancy. So how do we fulfill President Obama's promise and move our community forward so that the people in my community can have the same opportunities that are in Districts 9 and 10? It's with a Head Start. It's with extra resources. It's with programs like this that help to bridge that gap that really occurs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Warwick. Well, I don't want to belabor the conversation, but I'll just briefly add my thanks to everyone for providing their perspective, but I'll just reiterate the support that I have had for years in relation to this issue. That's not changed because, as Councilman Warwick just eloquently stated, we're talking about people's potential in their lives. And while we would all love to think that they will have two parents who will sit down and talk with them about, why they should be abstinent, we know that that's not the reality. And if we want to break the cycle of poverty, then we have to address all of these health issues that impacts people's ability to participate in the workforce, but in particular, teen pregnancy, as was stated, often curbs people's potential and results in them not fulfilling their educational potential. So for that reason, I continue to support these efforts because I think they have a tremendous impact positive impact on our community overall. So we have a motion and a second on item number 39. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Item 44.